Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. Thanks for spending some time with us here on your Sunday morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you might be at. Alongside me here in the co-captain's chair today, we've got Mr. Rick Labonte, my buddy from up in Canada. What's going on, Rick?
How you doing, my friend? Doing great.
Good. How's things up in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, good. Album's just selling. I'm busy with the both bands that I'm doing, and yeah, seeing concerts and performing concerts. I'm doing a little balance of both, so it's been great.
There you go. And
Ready for
Rick's,
the
Rick's
holidays
also
too.
been, in addition to listening to lots of Bigelf albums, he was watching his Gamera films because we did that whole Gamera episode the other day. He
Yes.
did on the Monsters Den, which was fun. So, but yeah, we're talking about a really cool band today that Rick and I have been talking about covering here on Ranking the Albums for a while. This is a band that's been around since the mid '90s. And they've been a little sporadic as far as their recorded output over the years because their main guy Damon Fox, who's their chief writer, uh, vocalist, keyboard player. He has been a member of the Cult for quite a number of years now. So he's kind of put Bigelf on the back burner. But in the early 2000s, I mean, a lot of us were talking about Bigelf and listening to them, a really cool band from California that I guess the best way to describe them, and Ricky can back me up on this, it's like kind of like stoner rock meets classic rock meets psychedelia meets prog. So think the Beatles,
Hmm.
the Move, ELO, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Atomic Rooster, Uriah Heep, with some of the kind of 90s kind of stoner rock bands like maybe Clutch and other stuff like that. So I don't know if you want to add your 2 cents in
Yeah,
there.
I think that you described that very well. In fact, it's interesting. Can you know how some bands have the publishing company like Beatles Northern Song? Big Elf call it evil Beatles music, and it is evil Beatles
And
music.
it
It
totally
has the,
is. Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I think it summed it up pretty well. I mean, to me, when I listen to these records, and believe me, folks, I don't want the audience to misunderstand. This is an original band, very unique band, very uncanny, unpredictable. That's what makes them prog and psychedelic. But they give you the memories or the retro vibe that you've had from the old analog days, from Alice Cooper, Billion Dollar Babies, and mostly albums, not necessarily bands, but they give you a feel of albums like Sabbath, as you mentioned, harmonies like the Beatles and Badfinger. I hear Badfinger vocals sometimes. I feel I'm listening to Ziggy Stardust and meet T-Rex Electric Warrior at times. And then there's that Grand Funk, early Grand Funk trio before they got with the keyboard player full time, where they had that, the speakers are almost blown on the amplifier. It's so garage sounding, so rough, and yet it sounds so great. And it's a digital recording, most of the album, and yet it sounds so analog. And so, yeah, and then you get the keyboard sound that could give you a vibe of Uriah Heep, Atomic Rooster, and so. Yeah, I think you sum it up very well with the titles of the genre, but one album is not going to sum it up, or one song couldn't sum them up. You have to hear the whole album to really
Yeah.
figure with them out. That's what I like about Alice Cooper, Billion Dollar Babies. They were so adventurous. They give you some pop songs, they give you some rock, but then they do some creative stuff you just don't know what they're capable of. I mean, look at the guy. He looked like a ringmaster for a freak circus. He's like a new an Alice Cooper or some persona that brings out all these creative imagination in their songs.
Yeah, I mean, I think I even wrote it a couple times in some of my descriptions as I was re-listening to these albums, like the demented Beatles. He's got this kind of like nasally John Lennon sounding voice. He doesn't sound like Paul. He sounds more like John
No.
Lennon, but he's got the top hat and the beard, and he's really tall and thin. And I've met him in person. He's a really cool guy.
Oh,
But
cool.
he's definitely got a twisted vision for the type of music he wants to do, but it's very listenable. And
Yeah.
if you're an old school prog fan and you love like Mellotron and Hammond organ, there's tons of that stuff on these albums. If you're a fan
Agreed.
of like Sabbath and the doom and stoner rock stuff, and you like big fat guitar riffs, there's tons of that here. If you like really kind of pop vocal harmonies like the Beatles, ELO, The Move. You mentioned a couple other
Hmm.
bands too,
Badfinger, yeah.
Badfinger. There's lots of that here as well. And then if you like
Yes.
kind of dissonant, like King Crimson prog rock, there's that here as well. So they don't fit in any neat peg, and I think that's what makes them so cool, and what I was originally drawn to them by, because they kind of click a lot of the boxes that of things that I really like, and I've seen them live, and they're a lot of fun live as well. So they have like a kind of complicated history here as far as their recorded
Yes.
output. They have 4 full-length albums that we're going to rank. They have an EP that they released before the full lengths that is pretty damn close to a full length as it is, but it's been reissued so many times with different tracks and things like that. We're going to save that for the last and talk about that and not put it in the regular ranking. They have a couple other EPs that like maybe have a new song or two and some live stuff. We won't
That's
include
right.
those. We'll show them, but yeah, we're gonna mainly center on the 4 albums, and we've ranked them in order of preference. Kind of tough, as I say a lot of times. I think if we did this 2 months from now, my ranking might even be different, but I have my clear favorites and amongst this group of 4 albums. So I'll have Rick kick us off with his number 4.
All right. And yeah, being only 4, it was struggling to try to find out which one I like the best because there's just so powerful songs in every one of these records. So when it came down to like, I knew what my number 1 was, and perhaps number 2, but number 3 and number 4 was kind of a duel because number 4, I like some songs that are really strong. But as an album, we're not going by songs here. We're going album ranking. So we want to talk about from bookend to bookend, from front to the end. So I had to pick. And it pains me to put this anywhere low because it's nothing short of an awesome record. In fact, I would say these 4 albums are all in 4 out of 5 for sure, or if not 4.5 in some cases, and maybe the number 1 5 for me, but knowing what they're about. But let me explain a little bit of history first before I get into this, just really quickly. This was the album that got me into it. And you know why? Because Mike Portnoy played on it. To be honest, I didn't know about Big F, or I didn't see him in concert. I never met him like you did. But my gateway was because Mike Portnoy played on him. And I'm a big fan of Mike Portnoy. As you know, I cover all his bands. And he has this huge poster or a Facebook poster anyway, every album he played on, and I recognized this record, and I said, I don't got that. I got to justify that. And you know how much Michael has recorded, right? So he's got a lot of stuff. I've got probably maybe only a handful of the tribute albums I don't got yet, but I got everything. So this was no exception. I had to get it, and I loved it. I was like, wow, what an uncanny band. And so immediately I went and got all 4. And even though Mike wasn't on it, I was already convinced that this band got a great imagination. And it was nice to listen to something that I couldn't predict what was going to happen. You know, sometimes you listen in a band, you get the formula in the first 3, 4 songs. You know what, you can almost give it a title. But look how hard it was for me and you to sum up, to describe this band. So anyway, going to my number 4, and it's no shot of being any weak of an album. It's a great album. And in fact, I loved it so much. It pains me to put it at number 4 just because it might sound like a bad album, but it isn't. It's The Money Machine. I really like this a lot. Some of the songs in the front are really strong to me. But as they get to the end, it gets a little really psychedelic. And they threw a cover, which they do a good job, Atomic Rooster, Death Walk Behind You. But if I had to go number 3 and try to figure out, 'cause to me, they're almost like par. This is where it happened. The Western one has all original. This got a cover on it, and I pretty much how to decide because that was a tough battle, almost a draw between number 4 and number 3. So let me talk about a couple of these tracks that really sell it. The title track is awesome, great opener. Cello is a nice tune, very again retro, very sound of the blast of the past. The third song is very manic, neuropathic, psychopathic eye. Just the name kind of sums it up. Then you got Side Effect, which has all these great harmonies. That's kind of what I said. Wow, I'm seeing the bombastic of this band, and also see how they can have that poppy, accessible hooks that you were talking about, and it's so heavy at time, and then just so soft at time. Another Nervous Breakdown is a great proggy retro rock song. And then the rest of it kind of reminds me of some stuff that you hear in schools out Alice Cooper, like Iron Heel. And then that weird ending of the bitter end. But anyway, this is got to start somewhere, and this is number four for me. I did think the rest of the albums even got better sonically in the production wise because this is their first album, and so I'm sure there's a budget, and but they did a really good job. What a really great way to introduce yourself, and I just want to say, a fantastic record.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. You got to start somewhere, right? And it's my number four as well. Um, yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I heard this band, I was kind of like, and this wasn't the first thing I heard. Yeah, I don't honestly, I don't remember whether it was this one or the EP that I heard first. I really can't remember. It's a long time ago. But one of the first things that grabs you is those kind of like soaring Beatles vocal harmonies. Right,
Yes,
right
right
off
away.
the bat, the title track, and you got all this mellotron, you got all this organ, these big gargantuan guitar riffs. I mean, it's a great song to kick off the album. You mentioned "Sellout," which to me sounds like the Move, right?
Yes,
Uh,
good
you know,
description. Yeah.
and just again, Sal and Gary are probably watching this. There he goes, Pete, with the soaring mellotron all over the place. It literally, the mellotron is all over the place
It
on
is.
this album and every one of these albums. If you love mellotron and you like, but you like kind of heavier music, you come to the right place here. Neuropsychopathic Eye is just absolutely terrific. His vocals are just wickedly fun. I mean, Damon is a really cool singer. He's not like your stereotypical lead singer, but he's got really, I just love his phrasing, and he just sounds like he's having a blast doing this stuff.
Me too.
Side Effects has got some tasty guitar solos. It's fast paced. Another Nervous Breakdown again reminds me of like psychedelic Beatles. Really
Yeah.
digging that. Mixed with like a little bit of King Crimson, like early on. Mindbender, another like gargantuan Sabbath style riffarama things going on there. Iron Heel. It's funny because Iron Heel to me sounds like an even more demented Atomic Rooster. And then literally the song after that is their remake of
Yeah.
Atomic Rooster's Death Walks Behind You, which is really neat. The only song I'm not crazy about on this album, and it's not bad, but it almost like doesn't fit, which is the closer, the bitter end,
Yes.
which is like really kind of slow and atmospheric. It's kind of proggy, but it doesn't
Weird.
have the immediacy and the kind of sense of fun like the rest of the album does. It's good, but it's easily my least favorite song on the album. So yeah, this is terrific. A great full length debut. If you didn't hear the Closer to Doom EP, and but it would just signal like much better things to come, I think. So for me, this was, even though the differences between these albums is very small and minute, this to me was the clear number four, I think, when I was kind of re-listening to these albums. So
And me too. And for the same reason you gave, it's the very last track. I thought, okay, all right, so to lose its power, and they got a cover on there. And so that's where it made it easier for me to decide. But because those front songs in the beginning are so powerful, it made me give it a good run. I think my next one I'm gonna go with, and I really think it's a fantastic record. I'm actually from front to back. It's nothing wrong with this record at all. But there are stronger songs on the previous album, so I'm gonna show in number two, number one. But it's gonna be Hex. All right, they get 2023. I really love it sonically. It's a really great done album. Whoever produced this with them, as far as I know, he has a big hand in everything. But it's the way it sounds consistently from front to the bottom. I love it. Some of the songs that stand out, because we don't want to waste a whole lot of time, but Mad Hatter is a great opener of a track. Bats and Belfry 2, and the number one at the very end, which has that James Bond theme music in the very intro, which I'm a Bond fan. Painkiller, what a rocker. I love that. Disappear opens up with that cool groovy bass line, and then it has kind of a Bad Company Ready for Love vibe with the keyboard organ thing. It just automatically hook you into that whole trance where you kind of have that walk and choose beat right through all that. Great tune. I love that. And then the song, to me, this record gets better and better and better as you listen on. A lot of people put all the best stuff on the front of an album. To me, I think it wheels you in and you're like, holy, this is getting better and better as you bring it closer to the boat. Rock and Roll Contract. It reminds me of Cheap Trick, really. It has a Cheap Trick feel. It's got a great thing, and maybe it's a little bit of testament of what they were feeling. We need a rock and roll contract. We need to get successful. Sunshine, Suicide. Great Zeppelin riff. Remind me kind of like Moby Dick kind of sound of the riff of Zeppelin, but meet Badfinger's vocals and yeah, it's a great track. This is one of those standout tunes that if you're gonna listen and test the album, these two songs are the one that could be more accessible for the mass audience, right? Fallen Bomb's a great rocker. Black Moth had that kind of dazed and confused feel in the intro, but great guitar work in this stuff. So anyway, I love this record. But by this point of I've already owned three of their records, and I wasn't surprised what to get, and they just didn't disappoint. See, when you listen to those other albums, they were like new impressionable, but by the time I'm already a big fan, they couldn't do no wrong. And then when I got this last of the discography, I was like very proud. I think it's a fantastic record.
Yeah, it is. It is. More about that in a little bit. My number three, I'm going to go with 2008's Cheat the Gallows. And there you get a good look at these guys, right? So they kind of got that look. It's funny for an American band, they kind of look like they're from like Norway, right? Although I believe that Damon and the guys relocated to either Sweden or Norway at some point in the 2000s. So that could.
That's right.
Yeah, I forgot.
But even the album cover kind of gives you that European vibe.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. Like something, yeah.
So this is a pretty terrific album. Again, as all these are. You got this song that opens up called the Gravest Show on Earth, which adds this little flair of like theatricality to their music, almost kind of like these big psychedelic sounds meets like hard rock. It brings to mind like David Bowie and the Beatles and the Move all kind of mixed together. Really cool stuff. You got Blackball, which is another good hard rocker with just big crushing guitar riffs and even more Mellotron, and even like a saxophone solo and a Hammond organ solo. It's like, why not, right? Throw it all in there. You got Money, It's Pure Evil, which is total psychedelic pop. Really great song, really fun. The really sinister sounding The Evils of Rock and Roll. I really like that one a lot. You got more pop hooks and prog on No Parachute. You got Superstar, which is probably the catchiest song on the album, one of the catchiest songs that they ever did. Just a really good kind of like 70s hard rock tune. Race with Time, big and rocking. Hydra is just absolutely pummeling. And again, there's like a sinister kind of vibe to some of these things. You mentioned like the early Alice Cooper group stuff, not that dissimilar. Early Alice Cooper group, early Atomic Rooster, that kind of like just this kind of evil, sinister vibe. There's nothing, the lyrics are fine. There's nothing evil about anything here other than the vibe of the music at times. It's like some of it's really fun sounding. Sometimes it's kind of like darker, which is really cool. And that Hydra song to me just sounds like this collision of like early 70s Atomic Rooster and Black Sabbath, because you got all this organ and Mellotron and big, huge riffs. And yeah, really good album. Could easily be number one, right? But it's my number three. Cheat the Gallows.
Right on. Okay, so I like I did. It gets very difficult getting this. Like even Hex, I showed it and I'm like, does that feel right? Because because it's such a great record. And my next one is The Gateway. Into Maelstrom, and I like the second disc that you got, bonus stuff too as well. But I'm gonna put this one, 2014. It's my first introduction of Bigelf. Great recording, and again, it was Mike Portnoy that basically the reason why I took a gamble on a band. I had no idea what they were sounding like. I just had to get it, and wow, that was a nice surprise to get this record, and it's awesome. So it opened up with this incredible Time Machine, a little bombastic. Some of the stuff I find like they're all fighting for the same frequency of as far as the mic go. It's really heavy, and if you got heavy bass in your stereo system, you're gonna feel it. Hypersleep is a great record, great song. I mean, and Already Gone. Opens up like Fields of Joy from Lenny Kravitz, and then it goes into their typical evil Beatle music. It sounded great. Alien Frequency, great vocals. Again, it reminds me of that Badfinger stuff. Professor, Madman, more great vocals and music that they do, and great guitar work too. I mean, this is just a great band. Vertigo, I should say. Progressive arrangement with the really pop, catchy stuff, like you mentioned on the last pick. Control Freak is one of the songs that actually stays in my head. I hear that Control Freak, and I'm not a control freak. It's just that you hear that theme song almost. Is that every time for some reason it's just so catchy that I wake up with that riff and that tune, and it reminds me of T-Rex a little bit. Meet David Bowie. Um, High is a pretty good psychedelics tune. Edge of Oblivion or whatever is great. This was interesting. The Theater of Dream. Did you listen to the lyrics to that? It's like saying, don't worry about, like, you know where he is with Dream Theater, Mike Portnoy. And it's almost like it's in the song title, Theater of Dreams, that, you got to persevere. You're doing the right thing. You got to go on. You may be feeling alone, but you're kind of like, we got your back kind of thing. So it's kind of neat. I thought that was a reference to Mike's Portnoy's situation. So that was kind of cool. So check that out lyrically if you haven't caught that. But anyway, great record. Again, struggling with this ranking because they're really nothing short of brilliant. It is genius work here. I mean, you got to know that they coming in as an album package. It's not song by song. It's a whole experience. Just like when you listen to "Welcome to My Nightmare," it wasn't just the theme opening song. You got to hear Black Widow before the album's over. You got to hear "Only Women Bleed" because it had that dynamic that you need. Same with "Billion Dollar Babies." You needed to have that "No More Mr. Nice Guy" and that's creepy, sick thing, and "I Love the Dead" as the wrap up. This album kind of does that. I mean, in fact, all the album does that. They have a great intro, a great ending, like you are experiencing a movie or a TV show with the ringmaster at the helm here to come on into the show. So anyway, great album.
Yeah, it is. And, it's funny. You mentioned, obviously Mike plays on this album, and you mentioned the song, right? Theater of Dreams. And I was just sitting here thinking, because the time I saw them and met Damon, they opened for Dream Theater. It was the Progressive Nation tour, probably either 2014 or 2015, or maybe a little bit or somewhere around there. And I went down to Asbury Park, New Jersey to see that show. It was Dream Theater, Zappa Plays Zappa, and Bigelf, and Scale the Summit. So there were 4 bands on the bill. And Damon was just kind of walking around, in between bands during the show. So I stopped to talk to him, and he and I have been communicating via email for years. I mean, when the band first came out, because we were covering their stuff on the website for all the way back to the beginning. Right. And so I'm wondering if that was, again, because I don't remember exactly what year that was. It had to have been around this time, because I'm sure Mike handpicked them to be on that tour based on him playing on the album, or maybe the album came out afterwards. And
it had to be after, because I think he left in 2009. Right, and 2009 was the last Dream Theater album with Mike Portnoy. So he might have.
So it was a long time. Okay.
So he did tour with them, made friends, and the guy was having some issues about picking up the pieces because he lost some band members and stuff. And Bigelf isn't getting the notoriety that they should. They're not getting the fame. So I think. My understanding, Mike kind of cocked him into put another Bigelf record. I hope you. And but obviously with the still hot off the press, which is only 4 years after he left Dream Theater, there's still a lot of some things are said on the internet that they can't take back. I think this was just like a friend leaning on your shoulder to say, "Hey, buddy, it's all right. You're gonna be okay." And so that's why I think this was. I don't think it was a tribute to being friends with the Dream Theater. More or less, Mike left the Dream Theater, and
I'm getting my years all kind of mixed up.
But you are connected, right? Is that the Bigelf was something that Mike asked him to tour on? He was impressed with their album and wanted to give him a boost, give him a help. Yeah. So what's your next one?
That is my next one, Into the Mountain. So again, everything you said, band picks up right where they left off, even though it had been like 6 years since their last album. Incredible Time Machine is just demented, heavy prog fun. Love it. Hypersleep, heavy, kind of spacey.
Hmm.
Already Gone's got some catchy pop hooks, and the big Mellotron. The Mellotron is always around the corner everywhere you turn on these albums. Alien Frequency is interesting. It's got like Beatles and Hawkwind, right? And then you got a song like The Professor and the Madman, which has like sitar and heavy riffs and Mellotron and Beatles style vocals. It's like, what is going on here? It shouldn't work, but it's done. Mr. Harry McEway is another kind of real cool doomy song. Vertigod, I love. I mean, it sounds like a long lost Sabbath song from like Master of Reality, but with lots of keyboards and kind of playful vocals, right? Control Freak, you mentioned. Crushes. High is, if you love psychedelic like stoner rock, High is, I mean, obviously it's called High, right? Perfect.
Yeah,
perfect
for a
track,
reason.
right? Yeah. And Edge of Oblivion is just totally demented. And then you got like, if you're, all right, so again, for those of you who always chuckle when I talk about my love for the Mellotron, the glorious soaring Mellotron, if you're a Mellotron fan, listen to their big epic that closes this album. It's called ITM. It's like a
Yes.
art epic. Some of the best examples of how to use a Mellotron to dramatic effect I've ever heard. And I've listened to a lot of dramatic Mellotron. So, you know, if you love like the way King Crimson used Mellotron and the Moody Blues used Mellotron way back in the day, listen to this song. It's creepy, it's unsettling, it's psychotic, it's just really, really good. A wonderful album. I mean, I could have easily put this at number one, but it's number two. It's great. Really, really good. Damon, if you're watching, I know you've been busy with the cult on and off. We need another Bigelf album, so don't make us wait anymore. It's already been 9 years. Like let's do it. It will be 9 years. So anyway,
so my number one game, obviously, coming down to this one. This is like you said, all the songs you picked were fantastic. To me, I just want to highlight a couple of things. First of all, the reason I think I like this is for my second purchase after getting this one. I was just blown away how great it was and how more, like this was a little more modern Big Elf, if you will. Yeah. This sounds more like that analog experience I was telling you about. And I think that's why it championed, even though I think this is a better solid album front to back. To be honest, I do think this is a great album from everyone went through it, but these songs are so strong to me. And you had many experiences that you share that with me, Rankin, that even if you felt one album might be stronger, but the songs are so potent, this is what it was for me, especially opening up like with the hat like that, right? Opening up with the greatest show on earth. You felt like you were getting into a concept album. Good evening, everybody. And, the Rolling Stones have their rock and roll circus. All these people, I think it's like you got the greatest show on earth and you start watching. I'm like, oh man, felt like the old days of putting on a needle and you're going to get the whole, program. So Blackball, you mentioned bombastic lead vocals. It sounds like Peter Criss a little bit on our vocal. I hear Peter Criss from Kiss in there. Money is Pure Evil, definitely Badfinger, T-Rex vibe, great, like you said. It's so catchy and so... And yet, Evil Beatles music for sure. Evils of Rock and Roll. Sounds like a spooky TV theme with that little woo going in the background. And yet, evil doomy gem like this had some great guitars and the music and very progressive. I'm really impressed. No Parachute reminds me of that T-Rex David Bowie thing I was trying to talk about. And I love the organ on that one. You want to talk organ? That was great. The Game. Their way it opened with that nice vocal and such a great tune. Superstar, I like that one. That has a funny intro, right? Somebody talking in the background, play the effing song, and then it goes right into a good rocker. It's funny, good sense of humor. Race with the Time, with a special weird effect intro. I love that. And then, by then you know that there's not. This is what I meant about the term uncanny. Like you describe that when you say the X-Men, right? Because they're so different and so weird. Think of what this music from song to song, you're not gonna predict where they're gonna take you. Ride with the Time, I mentioned that. So Hydra, you mentioned that. That was awesome. And Counting Sheep, great epic. Close to a weird ending, but it suits it, and then they go right into that carnival music at the very end, like the way they open the record. And to me, that's what made this jump up on some of these albums because I felt like, wow, there's a band that's still doing what we love of the old day. That when you listen to a CD or an album, it's the whole experience. It's not, about the individual song. It's the whole experience, and that's what I felt like when I got this. So, uh, I was blown away when I got this. I really was. Like I was impressed. Okay, this is my first time, and then this I thought, wow, no wonder why Mike liked this band, and for all the reasons that we've said, it's still accessible.
Yep. Yep. It is. It is. All right. Well, if you haven't guessed already, my number one is Hex from 2003. It's interesting. You were talking about how the album covers got this feeling of like Scandinavia or whatever. It's like when you really look at it, it's like I don't know if I've ever noticed it, and I've had this album for a million years until just now. I started looking at it. There's like this kind of like ghost like
Versus,
figure
yeah,
here. I don't think I ever noticed that before. Like, how can I have not? I don't know. It's just so kind of creepy looking, and then you got the inside, which you open it up, and there's the guys in the band, right?
yeah.
Very very cool. Yeah, I mean, this is Mad Hatter is just terrific. I mean, I would say anybody watching the show, if you've never heard this band before, you want a song to go check out first. I don't know, man. It's Mad Hatter is just absolutely crushing. If you like early Black Sabbath, and
Hmm.
imagine Black Sabbath with like a shit ton of Mellotron in the arrangement. That's what it is. His vocals, Damon's vocals, are like kind of like they're playful, yet they're kind of weird and psychotic. So good.
Hmm.
Bats in the Belfry 2, to me, blends like early Pink Floyd with late 60s Beatles.
I agree.
Really cool tune. Really cool tune. You mentioned Painkillers, total doom.
Yeah.
Love it. Disappear is just this massive, like psychedelic song. Great. Sunshine Suicide is just great early 70s heavy rock.
Hmm.
And Black Moth is another terrific song. Again, I mentioned this in a couple other songs on other albums, but if you can imagine like early Ozzy era Black Sabbath meeting up with early Atomic Rooster, getting into a studio and jamming together. That's what Black Moth sounds like to me. It's
It
crazy.
definitely does.
And Carry the Load is so demented and nuts. And then you got Burning Bridges, which has some great Hammond organ on it. So good. I mean, this is, if you love retro rock, this is the one to get. Because
Yep.
this is, there's other things going on in some of the other albums, but this is just pure retro. And if you like late 60s, early 70s sounds, heavy stuff, psychedelic stuff, proggy stuff, pop stuff, this is it.
I agree. I mean, like
You're all good.
I picked this as my favorite because that's my favorite of all the things because they made such a major impact. But if I were to give somebody a go-to album to make sure you take a safe approach to big rock, because I mean, they could pretty have pretty strange and a little bit of out there art rock, right?
Yeah.
This is the album I would recommend for them to, you know what? Because I know they like Sabbath, I know they like, so you're gonna find a familiar territory for that. I would recommend this even though I think this is my favorite one because again, it was just so surprisingly. But I think you picked a great. I won't argue with your choice. I think you did a
They're all
great.
good. Yeah, they're all
All
really
great, but I think that would be the one I would recommend because I remember I was saying earlier that the songs Rock and Roll Contract and Sunshine Suicide is a song to play for somebody who never heard them at all. Because then if they don't have that imagination to go that deep into the weird and psychedelic or the stoner stuff, I think it's a safe place to start. But it's no shot at the rest of the record. It's just that once you know what they're about, you're ready for all this.
Yeah, you are. You are. So in addition, they got a couple EPs.
Yeah.
Most notably the first one, which was 1996, Closer to Doom. So this is about as close to a full length as you can possibly get. So originally, when it was released, it was a 6-song EP, clocking in at like 25 minutes or something like that,
Yeah.
or 25.
1996.
Yeah, something like that. And then they reissued it like not long afterwards on Record Heaven, which is the one I have with 4 extra tracks. So you got 10, all original songs, no live stuff, no covers. So now it's like 30 something minutes long. Then they reissued it again like later on. So this one has seen like 3 reissues.
That's right.
And I remember the first time I saw, again, if you love old school rock and you see that cover, what do you see there? He's like, oh my God, Hammond organs, Mellotrons, Les Paul's flying V's. Gibson SGs. I mean, Rickenbacker bass. I mean, orange amps. It's just old.
That's
So
his office.
it's ridiculous, right? It's just so old school. It's amazing. But
Yeah.
yeah, so this is actually really, really good. We, Rick and I went back and forth about do we include this in the ranking. We decided to kind of save it for the end to just talk a little bit about it. So
That's right.
again, if you look at investigate this catalog, don't sleep on this because this is actually really good. It's not quite for me up to the quality of all the ones we just talked about because I think they're still trying to figure out what's going on here, but all the elements are here. There's all the mellotron, there's all the Hammond organ, there's the big thick riffs. Change is a really cool song. Crazy is another good one. Again, mellotron, big riffs, sitar, Beatles harmonies. Frustration is really good. Salvation's another good one. You really can't go wrong with this. I don't think it's quite up to the mark of the others, but it's absolutely well worth having. I think if you're going to start listening to these guys. Then we got Goat Bridge Palace, okay, which is a couple live tracks. You got a new song called Side Effects, okay. You got Another Nervous Breakdown, and
Oh
then
yeah, that's from these.
yeah,
That's from the other song.
that's from the other one. Then you got a live version of Sellout, a live version of Neuropsychopathic Eye, a live version of Money Machine, and then a live cover of Sweet Leaf by Black Sabbath. So there's this, again, if you want to hear some live stuff, because they never really released, to my knowledge, a full length live album, which I would have loved to have heard.
Yeah.
And then there's also, which I don't have, is the Mad Hatter EP, which came out right around the same time as the Hex album, or right before it. So that, I think, and again, I don't have it, so I think that's got the original version of Mad Hatter, and I think maybe one more studio track and then a couple live things or something like that. So I don't know do you have that one? I don't have it, so I never got
No,
that.
in fact, I just because of our conversation, I ordered Closer to Doom. I'll be getting that in a week from now. But I didn't notice that one, but when I was doing my homework for what's out there, there was just a lot of, demo live stuff and was repeating other songs from the album. So I wasn't interested until you pointed that out that I don't have any of those songs. Plus, they got a cool poster inside.
Yeah, which is pretty neat. So yeah, so this is definitely cool, and for people who are watching who are fans, you probably think that this is just another full length studio album from them, and like I said, it originally wasn't intended that way. All the iterations that have come out since, it basically is. So this
Mhm.
was produced by Sylvia Massey, who was working with the band early on. So really cool stuff. And if you've ever seen, I was watching some videos yesterday of the band. They've released a few videos, and it's always interesting. And I remember seeing them live. Damon sits up kind of like near the front of the stage, right? And he's a vocalist and keyboard player, and he's got like the mellotron and the Hammond and with various synths around him. And there are times a lot of these songs where you hear all this stuff going on. He's basically one hand on the mellotron, one hand on the Hammond, and the microphone right here. And it's just a wild thing. You got the guitar player on one side, bass player, drummer, and it's just and he's got the big hat, and it's like they're really kind of a kooky band, but it really, really works. It really works. So
Right on.
yeah, it's been cool revisiting this because they haven't been around in so long now. That's like, sometimes you forget about bands because they become inactive and all these hundreds of other bands come up that you wind up paying attention to. So I really enjoyed re-listening to this catalog for the first time in a while. Again, so Damon, if you're watching, I'm not sure if you follow the YouTube channel. I know you followed Sea of Tranquility for the website for many, many years. We really could use another album, my friend.
That's
So,
right.
so hopefully, if Damon is watching, he will chime in. I'm going to try and contact him and send him the link to this when it's up. But Damon, feel free to contribute and comment down in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. So, anyway, Rick, anything to add before we say goodbye to everybody here?
I just want to say, yeah, thanks for making this Sunday available so we could do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, stay tuned for more ranking the album shows coming up on each and every Sunday. Coming up soon and into next year. So visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.com. No, sorry, .org. It's been a long morning already. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. It threw me right off my thing there. So again, tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday, I will be away on a business trip, everybody. So if you're looking for Hudson Valley Squares in the prog seat, they will not be airing this week. I will have, because I'm pre-recording them, I will have my top album countdown videos for you each and every morning. And hopefully, if I get a chance, I will record a couple of new album review shows before I leave. So at least you'll have that on Wednesday. But I'll be back on Thursday, just in time for the Monsters Den. Of course, Friday morning, the Funhouse with Martin pop off. Saturday, we've got the UK connection with Simon and Stephen. And then I'll be back here once again on Sunday with ranking the albums. So till then, have a good one, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. For Rick Labonte, I'm Pete Pardo. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.